What is up, everybody? Today I am here with very exciting news, and I need to tell you them before I even start this recap because I'm just so excited. I will not tell you the result of my game. You're gonna have to watch my recap to be able to see what happened to me in round 3 of the Olympiad. But what I am gonna share with you is that Sweden right now is shared second in the whole tournament, in the whole Olympiad. Sweden, small Sweden. I mean, chess is not that big in Sweden. We are right now shared second in this huge tournament. Right now, Bulgaria is leading, followed by Ukraine, Mongolia, and Sweden, who are on the exact same points. So, guys, I am very happy. I'm gonna go ahead and show you now how my game went. We played today against Spain, which is a very high rated team. Their average rating was around 2350, whereas our average rating is around 2100. So they were in pretty much all boards apart from board number 1 higher rated than us, like 200 points higher rated than us. So today the match was going to be a very, very, very tough match. Now, I was born and raised in Spain, so Spain has a very special part in my heart. I used to represent Spain in chess in the past, even though now I've changed federations to Sweden. So playing against Spain is definitely a special moment for me. I played against international master Marta Garcia, who was rated around 2305, I think. Yeah, around 2300. And she is a 22-year-old international master from Spain. She's actually a friend of mine. So it was fun playing against her today, even though, of course, when you play chess, you forget about any friendships and anything, and you just play your absolute best and try to win. So guys, I'm gonna go ahead and show you the game. Hope you enjoyed today's recap. Let's go. Okay guys, so I had the white pieces and I decided to start with d4, of course. My favorite move. And my opponent went for d5, and I had actually prepared quite a bit before this game. In the Olympiad, the thing is that pretty much everyone prepares a lot against you, and being a streamer, having a lot of games online makes me prone to having people being able to prepare a lot against me. So what I decided today was that because I know that Martha knows a lot of theory, and because I thought that she had prepared against me, I decided to go for something that I've never played before, which was a completely new opening. I have never played this before. It's called the Collie system, and I've seen quite a few amount of people playing it. So I decided to go for it today just to surprise my opponent and hopefully have her think a little bit extra in the opening. So I went with knight f3, and after knight f3, well, my plan was never to play the queen's gambit. So knight f3, she went e6, and I went for e3. Now, this looks a little bit passive, and I mean, truth is that this opening can be a bit passive. But what I was trying to do was that I was just trying to develop the bishop, and what I wanted to do was that I wanted to go c3 and e4 at a point in time. So knight f6 was played, I went bishop d3, and now she went for b6. Now b6 is a very common move and very logical move, but I had actually mostly looked at c5, which is the move that Marta typically has played in the past against this opening. And after c5, the ideas are typically just to, go c3, knight bd2, and then to go e4. So when she went b6, I actually realized that I had an issue, which was the fact that when she goes bishop b7, she's going to be controlling the e4 square a lot more. And so my brain was wired into thinking that this game was going to be the battle of the e4 square. And well, already now, I think that psychologically I had made a mistake, because at this point when she goes b6, I need to give up on the idea of going e4, and I need to go c4. I need to go for this plan, because she's already controlling so much this square. It's going to be very hard for me to play e4 in good conditions. So I decided to go for the same idea anyways, which was not a good idea, which was not a good idea, YouTube. Guys, I'm starting to get into recording, you know? It's not often that I've recorded just videos like this, and I'm just starting to get the hint of it. So I went knight bd2. I wanted to stop her from going knight e4. She went bishop b7, developing the bishop. In this position, I did a move that was not great. I went for c3. And c3 is a mistake. And I got confused from my preparation because after c5, I was supposed to go c3. And so I kind of thought that I wanted to do the same thing now because for some reason I thought that she has to go c5 to break the center at any point anyway. So it's not going to matter if I go c3 now or later. And the reason why c3 is a mistake is because I need to go c4. So by going c3, I'm basically just wasting a tempo. I need to go c4 because after c3, the only way for me to break the center is going to be to go e4. And e4 is just extremely hard to play in good conditions because she's always going to be able to put a knight on e4. And that's going to make basically like all my pieces kind of suck. Because with the knight on e4, it's going to be hard for me to develop this bishop with my knight here. The only way for me would be to go b3, but then with my pawn on c3, the pawn is going to be hanging with the knight on e4. So you guys are going to see what I mean. But c3 was a mistake, and it was basically a loss of a tempo in the opening. And this was probably where my game started to go wrong. This was a mistake. Now, my opponent went for knight bd7, and I castled, which I think is logical, and now she went for bishop d6. She's basically just trying to stop me from going knight e5. Now, here, like I said, I was thinking about the battle of e4. I really wanted to go e4 because I really believe that if I was able to go queen c2 or something in castles and I was able to exchange everything, I thought that this would be at least equal, and I thought that this was completely fine for me. I even thought that maybe she would have some holes in the position. So this is like my dream. I just wanted to get an equal position out of the opening. So I was just trying to go e4 because then I could break the center, exchange all my pieces, get my bishop out, and just get a nice, comfortable position and just play on with that. So that was my dream. But the issue here was that I realized that I didn't want to go queen c2 because after queen c2, there is c5. Now, after c5, I basically don't like having my queen on c2 because the rook will be able to go to c8 and the queen is just typically going to be like pretty awkward here. Probably here I can go something like b3 just to avoid c4. And maybe this is fine after castles. Maybe this is fine. But the issue here is that e4 is not really a good move at this point because now after I go e4, there is c takes d4, and after c takes d4 and d takes e4, I am basically going to end up with a pass pawn. I'm basically going to end up with an isolated pawn. And that is not really something that I want. This pawn is now going to be pretty weak. Especially after an idea like knight f6, knight d5, black is going to be able to put a piece right in front of the pawn and really consolidate the position so that I cannot push my pawn anymore. So I just did not want to do that. So I went for the move queen e2 instead. And the idea of queen e2 was to go bishop a6. I wanted to go bishop a6 because this bishop was... I thought that this bishop was quite strong because like I said, I want to go e4. This bishop is really stopping me from going e4. So if I can exchange this bishop for this bishop, get my queen back, then maybe at some point I'll be able to go e4 and break the center the way that I want to. And after queen e2, she has to pretty much go knight e4. If she doesn't go knight e4, then I'm going to go for e4. Like if she castles, for instance, then I'm going to go for e4. And then I'm going to have the position that I said before. We're going to exchange everything in the center and I'm going to have a nice, comfortable position. So she has to go knight e4 too. So she has to go knight e4 to basically block me and stop me from going e4. And now I decided to go for my plan of bishop a6. Now, if you want to hear something very crazy, is the fact that at this point we have played 7 moves. At this point we have played 9 moves, and we already had around like 40 minutes. We had basically, for these 9 moves, we had used 50 minutes of thinking. Now I know that sounds absolutely insane. Like I realize that sounds absolutely insane. But there actually had been quite a lot of different variations. Like, I was actually also considering, with bishop a6, I wanted to go bishop a6. I had also considered going bishop takes e4, pawn takes e4, and then knight e5. Now, the idea of this is that I basically want to take here because if I'm able to take on e4, then black's pawn structure will become quite damaged, because if she goes f5, then this pawn on e6 might become damaged. And at this point, I cannot take with the knight, because if pawn takes back, then I'm gonna be losing a piece because there's a fork. So the idea is to take with the bishop and to go knight e5, because knight e1 or knight anywhere else, well, I can't go anywhere else, but knight e1 is just very passive. So knight e5, my plan was that knight takes knight, pawn takes knight, bishop takes pawn was not possible due to queen b5 check, winning the piece. So I thought that she would then have to go something like bishop e7. And then I was thinking that something like queen g4 might be pretty good, because I am right now threatening both this pawn on g7 and this pawn on e4. So I just want to show you a line here, which I didn't see back in the game, but I saw this when I was analyzing later. And I just find that this is so incredibly insane. But the best line over here for black is to go king f8, defending this pawn, you know, just chilling. Because if knight takes e4, there is h5 attacking my queen. I need to go to either f3 or f4 to still keep the knight. So let's say queen f4. And then there is g5. I cannot take here. So I need to go queen f3. That is the only place I have for my queen. And then there is queen d3, and then the knight is hanging. So there's no way for me to save it. So basically, this line does not work because of this, which is absolutely insane. But this is not the reason why I didn't play this. Of course, I didn't see this. This is way out of my understanding. The reason why I didn't play knight e5 was because I realized that after bishop takes, pawn takes, and knight takes, after queen b5 check, there is knight d7. And now I'm a pawn down. So this pawn is a bit weak. But if I go queen c4 to attack the pawn, then there's knight f6. And if I go queen a4 to attack the pawn at the same time as I'm pinning this knight, there is f5. And if I later go queen c4 to attack this pawn, black can just defend it. So I am basically just going to be losing a pawn in this variation. And that was the reason why I didn't go for this. But I was looking at it. So I went for bishop a6. And here she basically has to take. I took back. And then she went for f5 just to consolidate this knight, because if I take the knight, she wants to take back with the f pawn and not with the d pawn, because with the f pawn she's able to hold more center. She's going to be controlling more central squares, but she's also going to be opening up the f file, which might help her to create an attack on my king. Now I was actually expecting her to go castles in this position, and I was a little bit scared. Because here, my plan was to take and go knight d2. But I was a little bit worried about queen h4. Here, I have to pretty much go g3. If I go h3, g5, and g4, it can become a really strong attack for black. So pretty much have to go g3. But I was a little bit worried about this position after queen g4, king g2. I was a little bit worried about something like this. And so I was kind of expecting her to go for this, because here she's able to create a really strong kingside attack, and I knew that she's a pretty aggressive and tactical player, so I was kind of expecting her to go for something like this. So I was seeing all of these variations and they got me pretty scared. I was even considering not taking on e4 at this point and maybe going c4 instead after castles, because I was so worried about the queen coming up here to h4. But instead she went f5, and so I did c4 anyways. I was just trying to break the center. If she now takes my pawn on c4, well, then I will just be able to either take it or take on e4, takes back on knight d2, and just completely destroy black's pawn structure. So she cannot take on c4. So what she did right now was that she went c6. Now the idea of c6 is just that if I take here, she wants to be able to take back with the c pawn. Because if she takes back with the e pawn, well, then this f5 pawn is going to become pretty weak. So I decided that I didn't want to take. Probably in this position, the best move would have been to go b3. But guys, I had a brain slip. Now, a brain slip is my word for brain fart. I think the brain slip sounds better. It's like a mouse slip, but with the brain. It's like, you mouse slip with your brain. Okay, so brain slip. I think we should make it a thing. So I had one of those, and I actually thought that if I went b3, for some reason, I thought that there was knight c5, which, it's insane because, well, my idea was that after takes, knight takes, I thought that the queen was trapped here. But truth is that the queen has one square. The queen can go to a3. And for some reason, my brain could not comprehend that this square was not attacked anymore, because when I was starting to calculate this, the bishop was attacking this square. So when I was analyzing this in my head, for some reason, I still thought that this square was under attack. Let me know in the comments down below if this has ever happened to you, but this happened to me a couple times during today's game. I don't know if it was because I was a bit tired, or if it was, just probably something that I need to work on, which is going to be something that I'm going to work on. But it's good because now at the rest of the games, I'll be thinking about this and I'll realize that, okay, Anna, you might be doing this mistake. Is this square really attacked or not? So c5 was the move that I played, and this move looks a little bit crazy. But the idea of c5 is that I am attacking this bishop. And, well, if this bishop moves, if it goes to either c7 or e7, let's say that it goes to c7, then I'm going to go b4, and I'm just going to be consolidating my whole position. And my plan now is going to be to go a4 and b5. Well, I'll probably get my queen out of here so I don't lose it, but go a4 and b5 and just create a queen side attack. And I think that this would be pretty good for me. I would at least have a lot of play. Like, the position is probably around equal, but I would at least have a lot of play here. So I wasn't scared of bishop c7 or bishop e7, but she went for the move b takes c5. Now, my idea here was that it looks like I'm giving a pawn, but in fact, this pawn on c6 is hanging. So I'm not really sacrificing a pawn, but I just need to tell you guys that at this point, she had 15 minutes left on the clock. And this is move 12, everybody. So she basically had to do 18 more moves. She had to do 18 moves in 15 minutes before we got the 30 extra minutes that we get on move 40. There was a 30-second increment during the game, so she was constantly getting extra time, but still, that's like deep time trouble. I had right now around 35 minutes, so I had like 20 minutes more than her to think. So I considered going queen takes c6, but I didn't really like going queen takes c6 due to just simply rook c8. I thought that my queen was just getting kicked out. And yeah, I just didn't really like this. So I decided to go for pawn takes c5 because I thought that this was good. I thought that my position was good here, and I think it's so interesting how my position actually is not so great, but I think, at least for me, this is a really hard position to understand. Because what I was thinking was that, well, okay, so if she takes the knight on, if she uses this knight to take over here, well, then I'll be able to take on c6, and then this bishop is under attack. If something like bishop e7, well, then I can go knight d4, and she cannot push this pawn because this is hanging. So actually, I have like a lot of threats right now. So I actually quite like this. If rook c8, well, then I have queen b5. I'm threatening knight c6. So I thought that I had like a lot of compensation. Like, I haven't even sacrificed anything, but I thought that I had a lot of play. And if she took with the bishop, I was just thinking, okay, so queen takes c6. I thought this was good because I am both, I'm attacking this pawn on e6, and it's kind of hard for black to defend it. I mean, the queen cannot move to defend it because the rook is hanging, so she basically has to defend it with the king. And going king f7 or something looks a little bit scary. I mean, there's moves like knight takes e4, f takes e4, and then going knight g5 check, which looks a bit crazy, but the idea is that if you move the king, well, then this pawn is hanging, and if you go queen takes g5, then there is queen takes d7 check, and this is probably about equal. I did not think that this was a good move because I just thought, okay, I'm taking a pawn with check, and she has to move the king up. And to me, that just, I mean, this is like a mid-game bomb cloud, you know? Like, I just thought that no way that this is good. But I failed to realize that it actually is good for black. Black can go king f7 or king e7, and black is actually safe. And I did not understand that during the game, which is why I entered this whole variation. I mean, even like when I went bishop a6, I had seen these sort of ideas of going c4 or c5 maybe at some point. And to me, it's a bit crazy that I just did not understand that this was, so good for her. And I think that that's something that you can tell that there's a rating difference. And I think that's why I think that being able to evaluate position is so important. And yeah, I just found it very interesting. So here I actually was really happy. I mean, the position is -1, but in the game I was like smiling. I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I really liked it. So king e7, and in this position, I made a mistake. She also only had in this position like 5 minutes left, and I had like 30. So I was like, her king is in the center. She has 5 minutes left. I have 30. This is great. We are happy. We're happy right now. And so the first thing that came to mind was that, okay, there is this fork right now, right? If I put a knight over here, I'm winning a queen. So knight d4 was the first move that came to mind for me. And I probably should have gone for that move. I ended up going for b4, which is a mistake. And after b4, I'm attacking the knight. So the best move here, I mean, if the knight moves, then I'm doing fine. Like if something like knight d3 or something, then I can just go queen b5. And I mean, if like knight takes b4 or something, then I can just go bishop b2. And then I'm actually like developing my bishop. And even though I'm a pawn down, I would personally, I mean, I think I have some compensation. Like, this is still a little bit better for black, but I do think that I have compensation here for being a pawn down. I mean, the bishop is really good. My pieces are quite active. This knight is a little bit misplaced, and the king cannot castle. So there's definitely some points that would suggest that there's compensation. But I'm worse, and if black is able to exchange queens, well, then I'm just going to be a straight up pawn down in an endgame, which is not good. So, but yeah, but that would at least have been better than what happened. But she did a move which was really good, which was rook c8. And I had seen this move, and when I was seeing this, she had now at this point like 2 minutes, and so I thought, okay, I need to pressure her. I need to play fast moves so that she has less time to think on my time. And that is, a mistake. You should not do that. You should not do that. You should not, think that your opponent is gonna blunder in time trouble, because especially if you're playing as an international master, because they don't always blunder in time trouble. But truth was that when I was looking at this position, my train of thought went, my queen is under attack. There is only one square I can go to, queen b5, and I played this move in 5 seconds because I had already seen that this is the only square I can go to with my queen. I need to go for it. But as soon as I went queen b5, I saw a move that would just have been a lot better, and that was knight d4. Now, knight d4, the idea is that rook takes queen is not possible because there is knight takes c6, and I'm winning an exchange after taking the queen, after the fork. So after knight d4, black probably has to go king f6 or king f7. Let's say king f6. And, I mean, this just looks crazy, right? And after king f6, well, then I need to go queen b5. Then I need to do the same thing as I did during the game. And after knight c3, my queen is under attack. So I need to go queen a5. This is the only square for the queen, and probably queens will be exchanged. But the difference now is that black does not have knight e2 anymore. So this is the main difference. But everybody, I saw this as soon as I went queen b5, and I was really upset at myself for several moves because I was like, I missed the chance of, one, playing such an aesthetically pleasing move, but two, of playing probably a better move than what I did. Because I realized the issue. So I went queen b5, knight c3, queen a5 is the only square to go to with the queen. She exchanged, and then there is now knight e2, check. Now these knights just became so strong. King h1 is the only square, and then she went knight d3. Now my bishop is under attack. I cannot go bishop b2, I cannot go bishop a3. The only way to save my bishop is to go knight b3 and defend it. Now these knights, let me tell you, were the most annoying knights that I've ever played against. I just wanted to get rid of them, and I did not know how to do it, and it was so annoying. So in this position, one great square for my knight is to go to d4, which was why black went for e5 right now, just to stop me from going knight d4 at any point. But now I was happy because I was finally able to move my horrible bishop out of his, starting square. Finally, guys, my bishop developed, which I was very happy about. And now she went rook c4. Now with rook c4, she was just trying to double up the rooks, and sometimes there's even like some checkmate patterns here, I mean, maybe not now, but in a position where this pawn was not here and this knight was not here, there's sometimes some bishop takes h2, king takes, rook checkmate sort of things with this knight on e2. But I think she also went here just because she wanted to be able to go rook a4 and just put some pressure on all my pawns. So after rook c4, I went for the move knight e1. And the idea of knight e1 was just, once again, to exchange this knight. I really wanted to exchange this knight. And if she took on e1, rook takes e1, then I would also get rid of this other knight, because this other knight would have to go to like c3, and then I would finally be able to take it. So, I mean, I can just show you. And then we would end up in a position like this, which I would be pretty happy about, to be honest. I would probably be pretty happy. I mean, after something like rook a d1, I would be looking towards this pawn, and I would definitely have some play. I am worse still now, because black is a bit more active. My knight kind of sucks, and I have these double pawns, but at the same time, I would at least have a little bit more counterplay. So, but she didn't do that. She went knight b4, and I was actually quite happy when she went knight b4, because everything that I ever wanted was to get rid of my bishop and exchange these knights. So I was like, finally I can do that. So I took this knight, you know, faster than I can imagine. And guys, I'm just going to remind you of the fact that she's doing all of these moves with 30 seconds on the clock. She went down to having 2 seconds at one point in the game as well. She had very little time, and she was just blitzing out all these moves, you know, in 30 seconds. She was once again getting 30-second increment, but still, like, she was doing all these moves in like 30 seconds, which for being classical chess is a very short time. So she took with the bishop, and in this position I went knight d3 to finally activate my knight. I'm threatening the bishop, I'm threatening this pawn, so she went back to d6. I went rook e1, rook f e1 in this position, knight c3, knight b2. She went rook b4, the idea being to take out a2, and after rook takes, taking out my knight. And then I went back thinking that perhaps she wanted a draw because she was so low on time, but of course she did not. She did not want a draw. Actually, I think rook a4 here was probably her best move, threatening my pawn. I didn't really know how to defend this pawn, but she went rook b5. And now I played a move, which this was actually a bit of a mistake, going rook b5, because of the move that I did. I went f4, and this move, I was really happy when I saw this because, well, if she takes on f4, then, I mean, I'm just gonna have a really good position after knight d4. The idea of going f4 is that I'm basically forcing this pawn to not exist anymore, so that I can finally put a knight on this d4 square. So I'm basically forcing the pawn to like go somewhere else than on e5, so that I can get this square on d4 for my knight. So if she takes here, then I would go knight d4, and then I would be threatening both the rook. I'd be threatening on f5, and I'm also threatening to take on f4 with check at any point. So this would be quite good. Like, this would definitely be probably a little slight advantage for white. But she went for e4, which is the most logical move, to not open up the e-file. Now, in this position, I made a mistake. So what I failed to recognize, I was quite in time trouble too, was that right now, everything that I had was the dark squares. I had to go for the dark squares. I had to get some activity going in the dark squares. If I did not, then I would not have any compensation. So the best move for me in this position would have been to go knight e5, just because if bishop takes e5, which, I mean, she pretty much, has to do. Otherwise, I'm going to go knight c6, knight d4, and my knights are going to become amazing. This knight is really good over here, so she pretty much has to take on e5, and after pawn takes, my knight is coming up to d4. I actually don't even know what she's going to do here, but if, let's say, any move, rook b7, my knight is coming up to d4, I'm threatening this pawn, and I'm actually going to start getting a bit of counterplay. I mean, I might go rook c1 soon, I might be able to double up over here, and I'm actually going to get a lot of play, and she cannot really get this pawn. This pawn, even though it looks like it's going to be very easy for black to take it, it's very hard due to the fact that there's so many squares that I'm controlling with this knight. Instead of going knight e5, I went knight c1 is an issue because, well, I am defending this pawn on a2 right now, which was the idea of going knight c1, but it's very passive, and after something like bishop a3, my rook was actually going to get stuck. I mean, I was actually looking at this, and I just realized that there's no way for me to defend my rook. I was actually just going to lose an exchange here, but she did not go for this. Instead, after knight c1, she went for g6, just so that after knight d4, I was not able to win this pawn. But now my position was very, very, very passive. In this position, I went for the move knight d4, and then she went rook b2, just to put pressure on this pawn. And at this point, I just thought, okay, I need to just get my pieces out. Like, I can't stay here. Probably a better move would have been to go h4 to do something else and not give up the pawn, but I really just wanted to get piece activity. So I went knight b3, just to get some piece activity. So after knight b3, my opponent actually went for a6. So my pawn is hanging, but she just wanted to stop me from having this check and then taking the pawn. Now, in this position, I actually went for the move rook c1. I was just trying to activate my rook, and my plan was, well, what happened in the game, that I wanted to be able to go after knight takes a2. I wanted to be able to go rook c6 and get some activity. I thought that I had more activity than what I think I actually had, but I was just trying to activate my pieces. So knight b4 was played, attacking my rook. I went rook b6 just to well, obviously defend the rook. I was trying to go rook b7. Check and maybe get some sort of activity. She went rook c8. And here I went rook b7 check. And we were like in super deep time trouble right now. She went king f6, which is also a great move. And here I went for the move h3. The reason why I went for h3 was because I wanted to get some space for my king, some air. Now, many of you might wonder, why did you not take your pawn on h7? Well, the reason was because after rook takes h7, there's rook c3. I basically, threatening both this pawn and these knights with 2 pieces, I basically don't have time to take a pawn and get my rook out of the play. I need to really focus on what is going on right now and not be too greedy to move my pieces to the wrong side of the board. The action is on the queen side, not on the king side right now. So I need to not be too greedy. So on h3, I think that perhaps h4 would have been a better option than h3 because with h4, there's never any checkmate ideas with black going h5, h4, kind of trapping my king over here. So, and this also allows me to get the path of king h2, king g3, perhaps even going h5 and then king h4. So this would probably have been a better way of me playing. But I went h3, h5 was played by her. An idea of going h3 was also to go g4 and then g5 checkmate. I mean, I know that it's not possible. I know that, you know, this is not, like, she was never gonna fall for it, but I just saw a pawn checkmate and I kind of wanted to try, you know. I don't know. I was low on time, but I thought it was a multi-purpose move. So h5, now I went rook b6. I was just trying to get some fast moves in time trouble. Now she went for rook c7. So here I exchanged, and my plan was just to bring my second rook in. Right now, I'm a pawn down. My position is pretty bad. Not necessarily just because I'm a pawn down, but because my knights are codependent. I mean, my knights are depending on each other. This knight cannot really go anywhere, and this knight cannot move, because if this knight moves, well, then I'm losing this knight. So, yeah, I had quite a lot of issues in this position. So because I realized that there weren't a lot of things that I could do in this position, I decided to just go for king h2. My dream would be to have knight c5 and have it work, but the reason why I didn't play it right now was because, well, there is knight a2 to start with, but I actually thought that there's also knight d3, and I just thought that this endgame, I was looking at this, I have to go rook d1. I cannot do anything apart from taking here, otherwise my knight is hanging. I have to go rook d1, and I just thought that this endgame has to be losing, because in the dream position, my king will get to e2. I'll be able to take this pawn with the knight, and then black will be able to exchange the bishop and the rook. I mean, we will exchange everything, because there's not really any other way that I can take this without exchanging, you know, all my pieces. And then this pawn is going to win. So I saw this, so I just knew that this move right now, which is the only square I can go to with this knight, would immediately lose. So I decided to just go king h2, just so that there would be no checks, and maybe at some point to be able to bring the king up. But, of course, she stopped me from that plan. She went h4 and just stopped me from any dreams of bringing my king up in this position. Now, I had actually also been looking at moves such as knight d3. I thought this was quite nice, because after knight d3, I was thinking about both rook c2 and rook c6. Rook c2 is probably what I would have gone, because I realized that rook c6 runs into the issue of knight e1, and this is very pretty. After rook takes a6, which is the reason you go to c6, there is knight f3 check, and if king g3, there is a pawn checkmate, and if king h1, there is rook b1 checkmate. So you need to take here with the knight, and after pawn takes, if, you know, white decides to try to keep the knight, well then there's just gonna be f2, and there's no way to stop the pawn from promoting. King g1 is not possible now. So I thought that this is quite nice. So there were these sort of ideas too, but she went h4, which positionally is just great because it's stopping me from at any point moving the king up. And at this point, I mean, I almost felt like I was in a bit of a 6-1. I didn't really know what to do. I really didn't know what to do. So I decided to maybe complicate things a little bit. I mean, I wasn't really complicating things, but I was just trying my best to fight on here. So knight c5, and I mean, here I was thinking that at least if knight d3, well, at least then there's takes, and d2, at least there's knight f3, and okay, maybe I'm winning some pawns at least. So I knew that this was probably losing. I mean, takes, I probably don't have time to take these pawns, but okay, I was just trying to do something. She went knight a2, attacking my rook. Now, if I move my rook somewhere else, I'm losing my knight. So I have to go knight a4, but I decided to go knight c6 check first because I wanted to move the king down as much as possible. So she went king e8, and now I went knight a4 to attack the rook. It's my only way of not losing a piece. She took on c1, I took on b2, she went knight b3. The threat is right now to just go king d7 and just threaten my knight and get this pawn. And here, I mean, I'm super lost. I went knight d1, which, I mean, was not a good move. Probably have to go knight a4, but still, I mean, this is a lost position. I went knight e5, takes, the king went up. Yeah, it was kind of sad. I lost a lot of pawns, but there wasn't anything I could do. There was no way for me to save any of these pawns. And in this position, after d4, I resigned because there was no way for me to stop this. And I ended up playing a game of almost 6 hours. I played this game for. It was 55 moves, and it was my first loss in the tournament, which I was quite sad actually after the game, which at first I was like, why am I sad? But I realized, you know, it's good to be sad. It means that you care and you're trying your best. But I feel like at the end that I had fought as good as I could, and I had really tried my best, and she was a very strong player, and I still find it fascinating that she played 15 of those like good moves with less than 30 seconds on the clock. And I hope that, you know, even my losses are instructive for you. They were instructive for me. This game was very instructive for me, actually. I learned a lot of things, both about the opening and both psychology, that it's okay to change plans. Just because you're going into a game with like one plan, doesn't mean that you cannot like change it mid-game. And I also, yeah, I think that those were the main things. I feel like I also learned a bit about endgames, you know, where it's good to have your pieces, and also that not everything is the way it seems. Yeah, not everything is the way it seems, guys. Sometimes you think you have a great position and it's not. And for a big chunk of this game, I thought I had a great position when in fact I did not have a great position. Nonetheless, guys, I am very, very, very happy about the fact that Sweden is right now second in the Olympiad. This is, I think, historically the best result we've ever had so far. Today, everybody won besides me. So the match today against Spain finished with 3-1. We won the match. It was insane because board number 4 was rated 2000 and beat a 2250. I lost against a 2300. Board 2 was a 2200 who beat a 2400, and then my mom who's 2400 beat a 2300. But still, like, in pretty much all boards they were higher rated than us, and we still were able to win the match. So I'm really happy about that. It is amazing that we're doing so well, that, you know, we are right now in front of India, guys. We're literally in front of India in the standings, which is like insane. So I'm really happy. We'll see for how long this goes. Tomorrow we're facing Cuba. We will see how that match goes, but I hope that you guys are enjoying the recaps. I hope you enjoyed this analysis too, and like and subscribe if you did. I'll see you in the next recap, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Yee.